again at one time. Okay, everything's worked out so far. But this is a subject that I'm going to give my disclaimer now. It might be slightly triggering for some individuals because it is something that, but it's something that we need to talk about. It's a global situation that a lot of people don't realize that why these things are happening. There are things that are happening to women and to men, and it starts with our youth. Um, for me, most people know that I have, and my husband have children that are on the spectrum, and they have some other issues that develop as they get older. Sometimes mental health issues. Quite bright, quite sweet, quite kind. But when communicating with them, if you don't know them, there'll be things that you catch and you may not catch it. Depends on the conversation, depends on the length of the conversation, depends on how heavy that conversation is and what your interaction is with them at that moment. Um, for me, I've had lots of incidents that did not involve my children, but I did not know that these people might be experiencing this. I took it as a personal situation. And what this conversation is about protecting your children, having that conversation with them about being safe and not putting themselves in a position or allowing other people to put them in a position where they are having someone touch them or say things to them or make them feel extremely uncomfortable. A lot of times we do not realize that the people that we are communicating with are unaware of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. I feel like the Me Too movement is a very serious thing. But what's happening in a lot of instances are there people who are among us who are undiagnosed with mental health issues. So many of the things that they say and do are not the intentions that we think, or they don't recognize it for what it is or is not supposed to be, what it should be, what should happen, what shouldn't happen. And a lot of times with parents, we give our children the talk about the birds and the bees, and we may tell them about um, things people shouldn't do to them. And we have a conversation about touch, what's appropriate touch. But we don't have that conversation about what they should not do, why they shouldn't say this or say that to this person. Um, with men, and sometimes with women, there's miscommunications if you have issues with cognitive issues in that direction where they don't understand when someone wants a kiss or does not want a kiss, when someone wants a hug or does not want a hug, what's appropriate behavior publicly, even when touching yourself. I remember my son being young and having different instructors continue to come to me and say things to me and acting. And at this time, I did not realize my son also, and they recognized something I didn't. One, I was having vision problems. So I had cataracts. So there were things I did not see. Like I did not realize that my son was, and my daughter was developing body hair. I couldn't see it. So they saw um, them starting to change, and I saw them daily, but there were certain things I didn't see. So anyway, moving past that part of the conversation into the things that my son was doing, he was constantly adjusting himself, but because he was starting to develop, they felt uncomfortable, and they kept saying stuff to me about how. And one teacher finally let me know that he made her feel cringy, and I thought, how? Now, as he got older and I realized it, and I had surgery so I could see him better, I started to understand what they meant. And there were things that he did that we had to try to cut off early that I did recognize behaviorally. He had a habit when he was young. He's a very empathetic child. And he would see someone, usually girls, if she was crying, no matter what her age was, he would walk up and she looked like she needed a hug and he would dive hug them. Meaning he'd see a woman passing and just latch onto her and start hugging. Now, when he was very young, that was cute. But I saw early on, and told my husband, I said, we're going to have to nip this in the bud because as he gets older, that's going to get, when he gets to be about 14, that's going to get him tased. Um, because they won't know what's happening. They're not having that conversation because there was no conversation had. And I earlier referenced my own personal experience. I can't tell you how many times publicly by strange men that I have been kissed on the mouth unsolicited. I was one particular event. I was in college, and I was leaving the school, and I was getting ready to catch a bus. It was me and another student that I knew really well, and we were going to catch the bus. And this guy, who I was walking past, looked me dead in my face, and before I could know what was happening, he kissed me on the mouth, which scared the devil out of me. I was like, I don't know what's happening here. But she and I, there was a exercise studio downtown on Southside. We ran there and hid. I was like, if I just stay in here, I'm just gonna stay in here. I hope I don't miss this bus. And then it started to rain. Um, Clearly there was something wrong with him. I had another incident. I was working. I asked this man about seating him, and he decided that I don't know why. And he worked at the Pizza Hut. He was still in the uniform, and he kissed me on the mouth. I had only asked him about seating him. I thought maybe he wanted to get dinner. I was at my job doing my job. And then I went and let my manager know, but he was more concerned about him eating off the salad bar um, and not having paid for it. But, and then I had to have him walk me to, because he spoke to the guy about it, but I had to have him let me out the back door because my shift was getting ready to end so that I could not pass this person so I could go to my car and go home safely. There are instances where people who are on the spectrum do things inappropriately sexually. Many a time, the reason that they end up in the penal system is because if they're not diagnosed, um, that's not something that's acknowledged. Even if they know that they have mental health issues, unless they are a danger, physically harming um, other people, and they feel like that's a long-term behavior, they will, and they have a history and they've been diagnosed, then they'll put them in a mental health facility. But most times they just end up in the penal system. They end up in and out of jail for different offenses of things of that nature. Many people that have those issues, because of them not knowing how to interact with other adults, what's appropriate with children, they end up being listed as sexual offenders, even if some of them did not do anything except they are following people and they don't understand how that works or why that isn't appropriate. I had an interaction with my daughter who is autistic, and this is extremely personal, but she's such a sweet child and she thinks she's being loving and kind. So she was writing these reviews and she's on Instagram now, which, man, I regret it. I wish we had not done it, but here we are. And she was sending messages. Fortunately, they are adults now, but she was sending messages for this particular group, children's group. And she was saying stuff. She was sending kiss emojis, and I love you, and I want to be your friend, and I want to kiss you a lot, and you have beautiful eyes. I want to be with you forever. And for her, that's her being kind. Online, that looks like she's gonna be sharing a shower with some people. Um, and I tried to explain to her, but she wasn't getting it. And she was offended that I was talking to her about it. She spoke to both of her grandparents, she spoke to her dad. I tried to get her brother to butt out because she was getting really upset. And this went on for days. We were having these conversations. There was a lot of prayer. We tried to share scripture. But her having the cognitive issues where she doesn't process the way other people process. So she doesn't see what other people see. For my son, I can tell him, hey, this is what this looks like to them. And he goes, oh, I see it. Like recently, he's been doing it forever. We've had a conversation about it a number of times. There's one particular thing that he does. But then I had to say to him, because I finally saw it after the situation with my daughter. He has a tendency to adjust himself. He has some skin issues, so he's itching a lot. He would reach inside of his clothes. Yeah. And he would reach inside of his clothes to adjust or scratch himself. You can't do that around people. First of all, wash your hands in bleach. Oh, we might have to use a little lye on them. Oh, child, no. Mama love you, but hug me from over there. But don't do this in public because this will, if you do this in front of the wrong person at the wrong time, what will happen is someone will call the police and tell them that there's a young man fondling himself in front of children or in front of a school or in front of women because they don't see it the way we see it. So it's really important to have those conversations with our children. Even if your child is not on the spectrum, it is crucial that you tell them how to interact with people and the signs of someone's interested in your human contact. It's okay to ask, but there are people who don't recognize the signs and they're very literal. And I've known of people to say to someone, to give them a dare, but they're joking, and this person literally does something possibly dangerous or inappropriate, and everyone's shocked that they did it without understanding that that person didn't realize that you weren't being literal. I am shocked at all the people that I'll make a joke. I remember I would be at work and I'd have a customer who was being positively ridiculous, and I would say it was amazing. It was the best time I ever had. I don't know what I thought, and they would say, "You really had a good time." I'm like, "You have to be stupid to think that was a good time," but you can't say that to people. You're thinking in your head. I'm like, "No, ah, no, I was not. I was being facetious. That was not the intent at all. I no, that was not a good time had by anybody." So sometimes people miss that. And for people whose children are on the spectrum or you suspect they're on the spectrum, or it is crucial that you have those conversations when you have to talk with them before they get to that point where they're a teenager and you're getting a phone call, or they're an adult and you're getting a phone call from the precinct. A lot of parents feel like certain things that they're very sensitive about what they say to their children, so they overlook those necessary parts of the conversation that they should have because they don't want to give their children too much information or upset them or embarrass them or make themselves uncomfortable. You know what's uncomfortable? Talking to a police officer, scraping up bail money, having conversations with someone about them having touched a child or done something in front of someone else that was inappropriate that they did not know. Sometimes they'll do things like for my daughter, because of her cognitive issues, we have to have conversations when we catch behavior that can put her in danger. Like if you go to a public bathroom and there's one stall, please lock the door. And I have to come to make a reminder of that, because there are people who I caught people, men, intentionally seeing that she go has went in the bathroom, and they think I've stepped away, but I'm only a few feet away. And I say to them, get ready to grab the door. When I saw them see me put her take her to the bathroom and shut the door and walk out, they saw that. So you gonna try to walk, and they didn't hear the door click, so they decided they were gonna try to open the door. No, sir, because I don't have enough bill money today, and my children need me. So and my mate wants me most of the time. So please don't open that door, so I don't have to do no harm to you. But for our children, it's important that we make sure that we are helping them to understand why things are inappropriate. It's not just a matter of helping them protect them. You make sure that people don't harm them, and make sure people don't, that they're not in a position where they will do something inappropriate. We have to make sure that they understand the whys of that, how not to violate someone else's rights, how not to say something that someone might misunderstand. When you have those moments where you see your children doing things, questionable behavior, or even because there are times that children will do things that they've seen adults do, and they have been known to do things inappropriate to somebody else who doesn't understand. So you have to be careful that they're not in a situation where they're around someone else who has mental health issues, and this is a child doing, or even putting themselves in a position where they're saying something, or they're going to go sit on an adult's lap. No, you're not. And this adult doesn't realize why this is inappropriate, because that conversation wasn't had with them, and you know something is going on. So before they're in a position where an event has happened, now you have to figure out what therapist to take them to, and who to talk to about this, and to keep your child from ending up in a child delinquency center. Take the time to talk to your children. Stop being embarrassed as parents, because what you don't want is your child to be the predator. Because they have mental health issues does not mean they will be excused. It does not mean that people will give them proper treatment. And you want to make sure that they're not putting themselves in a situation where people will harm them either. Because what's the problem when they're young that does not get addressed when they're young will be a problem when they get older. They need to understand why they cannot, as a 20-year-old, try to talk to a 12-year-old, or hug them, or kiss them, even if their intent is pure, without permission from the child themselves or parent. A kiss on the cheek can be misconstrued as assault. A hug can be considered assault. So we need to be more vigilant about that. And I think that this will start to curve a lot of the Me Too events, because there are lots of people in the industry of entertainment that are on the spectrum, that are undiagnosed. Many people are coming forward and saying, I have children that have autism, or other mental health issues, because a lot of that is cloaked and hidden, because it's a subject of embarrassment for a lot of people. But a lot of people are undiagnosed, or possibly they've had some information and possibly some treatment, but the conversations that needed to be had by them aren't, or need to be had with them aren't. So what's happening is a lot of things are or on this wheel where it continues to happen, and a lot of people are coming forward. There are people who hearts are wicked and they are doing things intentionally with plan and plot, and they are unconcerned about the well-being of others with the clear understanding of what they're doing. Am I telling you not to report what happens if someone has done something to you? Absolutely not, because they still need treatment, they still need help, and what they've done, whatever they've done, you do need to um, have them have that matter addressed. They do need to pay for their crimes, but we have to make sure that our children don't commit any. So by taking the time to have that conversation of what's appropriate, what's right, what's good touch, is what is bad touch, will not only protect them from being a victim, it will help them from creating one. You all, thank you so much for taking the time to join us in the room tonight with a special agenda on this particular topic. Hopefully, soon I will have someone else who's a specialist come on and talk to us on more ways of preventing and what we're looking for. What signs are we particularly looking for to know that our children don't recognize that, or we're around people who might be dangerous, and how to prevent and protect. Thank you all so much. You all have a wonderful night. Love your friends and neighbors, your mates, your coworkers. Be kind to them. Even if you don't feel like you're going to receive it back, because it's a choice. You all have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for your time, for taking time off your jobs, time off with your family, time off from doing the chores that you were doing, in your entertainment, whatever you were doing, that you took time away from us to join us in the room from your family and time, to join us in the room with a special agenda. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night. Okay.